Stay away from my friend, bro. Bad. Die. Welcome guys, my name is Jackson, and in this series we're going to be cracking into multiplayer first-person shooter in Unreal Engine. The fact that it's first-person shooter doesn't really matter so much. I just figured it'd be cool to have a project that we can use and, you know, build from scratch in order to illustrate all of the multiplayer concepts and things. It's going to be very off the cuff, and we're just going to kind of see what happens. I've got a vague plan of what we're going to do, but let's just see. So I'm in my Epic Games launcher. I'm just going to launch the engine and start a new project. Okay, so here's the project browser thing. Games. We're gonna roll with a third-person template. For reasons I'll explain later. Blueprint, maximum quality, starter content, etc. And I'm just going to call this multiplayer FPS tutorial. Oh, that's too long. How sad. Multiplayer FPS toot. And then can I create? I can create. Okay. Okay, so the project's loaded up, and just straight up I just want to show you a couple of things. So I'm just gonna go new editor window, just like that. We're in here, single player. Okay, that's cool. Now, number of players down here, if you smack that to 2, you'll get 2 windows and you've already got a multiplayer game. Just like that, you can see me running around in both of the windows. So that's cool. Now, another thing that I just want to show you, quick hack, advanced settings. Am I recording? I am recording. Okay, new viewport resolution. You can change these. I like to put them at about 500 each. That's the size of the windows, just so 500 is a bit too small, but they're just a lot easier like that, so you can see both of them without having to move screens around and things every time that you play the game. So maybe I'll go like 720 by 500, maybe by 720 by 720. That sounds like a nice number for some reason. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So that's that. So that's your multiplayer game. You're done, baby. No, just kidding. So what should we do first? Let's just create a few things that we're going to need. So I might just create a new folder down here and just call this multiplayer FPS. I need to slow down, man. I'm trying to do this too quickly already. I think because I'm anticipating it's going to be quite a long tutorial, and I kind of want to get through it quickly. But so I just turned my fan on in the background because it's the middle of summer. Well, it's not the middle of summer anymore, but it's still summer here in Australia, and it is quite hot, so hopefully the background noise isn't too loud. But the first thing that we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how to connect different players together. So at the moment, this connection that's going on right now is it's a fake connection inside of the editor. If you actually want to connect people with a server and a host, we're going to need to do that in the blueprint. So I'm just going to change the color of this folder. Oops, added that to favorites. Let's just change the color of that so I know where that is. And typically you do this through a menu. So should we do a menu? Let's do a menu. So we'll create a new level. Let's just hit Control S. I'm just going to create a new folder inside of my multiplayer FPS one and just call this maps. And I'm going to go into that and then just call this menu map. Okay, now I'm going to create another new level. Same deal, and just call this game map. And now what you want to do is go into edit, project settings. There's going to be quite a bit of setup for this, and some of it might not make sense just at the beginning, but bear with me. I'll explain it as we go, but it will become apparent shortly. So just trust me and just roll with it. By the way, you can follow along with this, or you can just watch. It might be helpful just personally. I find it useful to watch something and just sort of understand what's going on and then rewatch it and try and build it as I follow along. But that just works for me personally. Feel free to do whatever you want, obviously. It's your life, baby. You can live how you want. So I'm just going to go to maps and modes. The game default map, you want to set that to the menu map. That'll be the map that'll open up when somebody opens the game. And now we just want to set up a few things like game modes. Okay, so let's set up some game modes. Again, I'll explain what this is in just a sec. So if we go new actor, all classes, game mode, I think we want it to be game mode base. Although I'm not sure. Yeah, let's just go game mode base. I don't think it really matters anyway. So I'm gonna call, we need 2 of these, okay? So this one is gonna be called menu game mode. And I'm just gonna duplicate that, and we're gonna have another one which is gonna be called, should I call it game mode? game mode. Sure, alright, so let's crack open the menu game mode. Now, this just, like, it's just basically all you do in a game mode, you can have script and things like that, but the main stuff is over here on the right. The main stuff is over here on the right, so it just defines which player controllers and things you use. But so what I'm going to create is a new player controller. If you don't know what that is, again, don't worry. Just like if you don't know what a game mode is, don't worry, it'll become apparent. So I'm going to call this menu player controller, and you already know what's coming next. Game player controller? No, game player controller. Okay, so let's set up the menu player controller first. So there's just a few things that we need to change. I think it's what, show mouse cursor, and that might even be it, honestly. Show mouse cursor for the menu player controller. Okay, so let's open up our menu map. We've got our menu map. I think the first thing that we're going to need is a widget. So let's just go into the level blueprint, because we want to have a menu pop up on the screen. So do we even want to do this with a widget? I'm not even sure. Let's do it the easy way first, and then I might build on that later if I feel like it's necessary. So let's just go into our player controller. No, you know what? We are going to need a widget, so let's just do that. So let's open up the level blueprint. I might as well show you how to do it properly. I'm going to have a new folder in here, which I'm just going to call widgets. Right click, user interface, widget blueprint, menu widget. Open that up. We're going to have a... Oh, why does that keep docking up there? I know that there's a setting to auto dock those windows. Okay, so in editor settings, editor preferences rather, asset editor open location, just set that to main window, and that just stops tabs opening up being annoying. That's just a personal preference. But now that we've got our menu widget, let's create a button down here actually. So I'm just gonna copy my menu widget and just call this button BPW. Okay. I don't want this to be a widget tutorial, so let's just really smash through this. Anchors, set them on the big wide one and just set 0 for everything. And let's just grab some text and just drop that in like that. And then in the graph, in pre-construct, we want to grab the text which we need to make variable. I'm just going to control drag that in and say set text. Set text. Hook up to pre-construct, promote text to a variable, and just call that text variable. Original creative name, I know. Okay. I'm constantly checking to see that I'm still recording, because I just have this fear that the recording's going to stop for some reason and I'm going to work for like 3 hours and then not have anything to show for it, because it's happened before, baby, and it's not going to happen today. I'm determined to not let it happen today. So now that we've got that, let's just put in a default, and I'll just call that default text. Question mark, question mark, question mark. And if I hit F7, does that automatically compile? No, it doesn't. I think I might have set that up in a different project. My bad. Alright, so now that that's working, what we want to do inside of this button blueprint is on this button thing, just add an event down here which is on clicked. And then when that's... Oh, do I even need that actually? Maybe I don't. Let's see. So if we go into the menu widget and we grab our button BPW, we'll drop one there. Yeet. And I might just copy you and just put another one over there. One can be host and one can be join. Now this isn't going to work like a legit game. This is just going to be a sketchy workaround. But what I will do is, well, I'll build this first and then I'll tell you actually. Now you probably want to anchor them to the center. I mean, it doesn't really matter for the sake of this tutorial, but let's just anchor them to the center. And if we go into the graph, delete all that shit there. If I click on the buttons, no, they don't have anything down there. Okay, so what we need to do is back in the button blueprint, button onclicked, we're just going to have an event dispatcher, which is going to be called button pressed. Okay, and then you're just going to drag that in and say call. So whenever the button's clicked, that's going to fire. So now that we've got that in there, we can go back into the menu widget, and on both of our buttons here, one of these is join and one of these is host. So let's just rename that one to join, rename that one to host. Back to the event graph, host, on button pressed, click add event, and on button join, click add event. Okay, I really don't want this to be a widget tutorial, so let's just smash through this, baby. Now, when you're hosting, we're gonna say create session. Okay, now the player controller can just be get player controller, it doesn't really matter too much. Public connections, I don't really know what that is, but let's just put like 10. And LAN, so you could read this value from a checkbox that you've put on here, but I'm not going to show you how to do that right now. Now create session. If you create session and you succeed, we're going to say open level. The level that we're going to open is going to be our game map, so I'm just going to copy the name of that and put that into there. And down here in options, you want that to be listen. That's very important that you put that in there, so don't forget to do that. And now if somebody presses join, what we're going to do is, can we say get sessions, find sessions? Okay, find session, that's what it's called. Get player controller, max results, I don't know, let's just put 10 again. Again, you can check for LAN if you want. Now the results, okay, so what I was going to say before, there, I'm going to put a link in the description for another tutorial. It's not one of my tutorials, it's somebody else's tutorial, but he sets up this menu in a more legit sort of way that I'm going to do it right now. So what he does is, when he gets these results, he populates a vertical box with all the different session results, so that when you're clicking join, you can see how many different sessions are being hosted and you can join one. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to say get copy and just get the first session, and that's the one that we're going to join. Can I? Yeah, join session, just like that. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I don't want this to be a widget tutorial. So if you're interested in learning how to display multiple sessions, go ahead and watch that. There'll be a link in the description. But if you just want to get a game going that you can connect to on the Wi-Fi with your mates or whatever, that this is just the quickest way to do it. So join session, that should be everything. So it's just getting the first result, and sorry, we want that to be on success. So once it's found the sessions, we should just get it to join the session. And because this is opened and it's a listen server, what'll happen when you join is it'll instantly take the player who's joined to the map that the other player's in, who's hosting. So why don't we give that a shot? So in the menu map, we go blueprints, open level blueprint. We're going to need to say create widget. And this is going to be our menu widget. We'll add to viewport. And because we've set our player controller to have the mouse visible, we should be able to click it. But there's one more thing that we need to do. In the world settings here, actually before we do that, let's go up into edit, project settings. Maps and modes. Where's the game mode? So, okay, so the default game mode we want to be our game mode, okay? Because that's the one that we're playing the game in. So when you load into a map, you want it to use the default pawn of the game mode, the player controller, the HUD, etc., etc. But the menu is an exception, because in the menu we don't want to have an actual player. We want it to be a menu. So we're going to have a game mode override down here. So details, world settings, game mode override. That's going to be menu game mode. And as you can see down there, it's got the settings there. So what we need to do is change those settings so that it's suitable for a menu. So if we go to our menu game mode here, open that up. Player controller, we want that to be our menu player controller. Game session, I don't know, game state, doesn't matter. Player state, doesn't matter. HUD class, doesn't matter, because we're creating our HUD in the level blueprint. Default pawn class, we do not want a pawn. No pawn. Spectator whatever. Alright, so the rest of that's fine. So now, what happens if we click play? Okay, so we get two windows. Host. So he's spawned in, but he didn't get a default character. So let me just have a look at that real quick. So if I go into, where is it? Game mode. The reason that he didn't get a character is because the default pawn is the default pawn class. But what we want to do is we want to give him the third person character. Okay, so that's in the game mode. So that's when you've actually loaded in. So this is just the menu game mode, but if we hit join, if we hit host, here I am getting mad at the computer when I've clearly fucked up. Okay, so now we've got our character, and fingers crossed if we hit join, maybe it just needs a second. Oh, god damn! I didn't think it was gonna work. I thought I had to pause the video and then go and do it properly. But now you see that we've got our client in here. Now this looks, visually it looks exactly the same as what I showed you as soon as the video started, but the connection that we had before was an artificial connection inside the editor. This is genuine multiplayer. So if you package this game right now and you ran it on a computer at home and your mate had a computer next to you, and I think you need to be connected to the same Wi-Fi, unless you use Steam or something. But if you're on the same Wi-Fi, you can just connect and you'll be in the game and you're ready to roll, baby. So that's it. I'm going to pause the video now and think about what I need. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is how to travel across level transitions when you're in multiplayer, because I feel like that's quite important. So what we're going to do, I'm going to create a new folder and just call this game, oh no, let's call it blueprints. Let's call it blueprints, and we'll put all our game objects and shit in here. Let me just open that up so I've got better navigation on the side. I'm going to create a new blueprint class of type actor, and I'm just going to call this level no, what's the word? What did I say? Server travel teleporter, BP. Let's just call it that. So this is going to be just a simple overlap to show you how to change between levels when you're in multiplayer, because open level doesn't work. So let's just add a sphere collision. I don't know, it can be 500 big, and let's make it visible in game, so turn hidden in game off. And I'm just going to delete everything in here. The sphere, I'm going to right click and go add event on begin overlap. Now server travel can, let me show you what server travel is. So if I, what is it called? Console command? Execute console command. We're going to execute a console command, and I think we're going to need to append this, and we're going to be typing in server travel space and then the level destination name. So I'm just going to promote that to a variable, call that level destination, make that public. Oh, F7 does work to compile, that's handy to know. Okay, and the specific player, I don't think that matters, but let's just say get player controller. And when you overlap it, we're going to execute that console command, and we're going to open up a new level. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just to make sure that this is working, is I'm going to duplicate my game map, and just that can be called game map 1, that's fine. And I'm just going to save that and open that up. And inside of game map 1, I'm just going to, is it easy to change the color of the sky? Colors determined by sun position. Okay, well that looks different. Here we go. Cloud color. This one's going to have red clouds and it's going to be yellow. We're on planet Venus, baby. And acid is falling from the sky. So now, what was the name of that? So if I go into maps, game map 1, copy the name, put that in the level destination just there. And you know what I might do? I might just make this ground a bit bigger here. So I'm gonna lock that make that a 10. Hopefully you can follow my mouse. I know it's zipping around the screen pretty quick, but I'm doing my best to narrate what I'm doing as I'm going. So I'm just going to make the ground a bit bigger. I'm going to chuck in my server travel thing over there, and that's going to open game map, just game map, okay? And now if I go back into maps over here, and we go into game map, let's make the floor bigger here. And we also need to chuck in a server travel teleporter here as well. So let's put that over there, and that's going to open game map 1. So let's see if this works. I'm not sure that I've got the console command correct. Now, because we have the artificial connection right now, only the server has traveled. Okay? So you can see at the top there, if I just put my mouse up there, that's the server game. So only he has traveled. And what happens over here? Old mate's vanished from the game over here. Yeah. Oh, and I can't move. That's interesting. Look at that. So it's like fully fucked the game, because server travel only works when you've got the genuine connection. So if I go to maps and go to our menu map, and we go play, and this guy hosts, and this guy joins, and we'll just give that a second for it to connect. If I go over here now, fingers crossed, that time they both traveled, okay? And you can see that they're still connected. So that's how you know that we've got a real connection, because when it uses the server travel command, because when we open the first level from the host, we added a listen option. That's why you need that little listen tag, I think. When you go through these server travel things, you can now travel from level to level with your homies. And what happens if I walk through on the client, I wonder? Let's see if we can go back. So it's loading, it's doing something. Yeah, we can go back just like that. Okay? Beautiful. And the reason that it lets you go back, because usually you can't call server travel from the client, but what's happening here is because when this sphere begins overlap with anything, including on the server version of the game, it's executing the console command, and because that's being executed on the server, it's doing the travel. But don't worry about the authority and server and client and whatever the fuck I'm talking about just there. If that doesn't make sense to you right now, that's absolutely okay, because as we go through this, we're gonna be demonstrating, I guess, and we're gonna be building more and more things, and I'm gonna be explaining the connection between those two, because it's sort of it's a head fuck to wrap your head around abstractly. I think the best thing to do to understand what's going on with server and client and authority and remote and all of these fancy words is to just watch somebody do it and follow along. So I'm going to cut that there. Alright, so next up we're going to try and do a basic shooting mechanic, but before I do that, let me just go back into our server travel teleporter thing. And when this begins overlap, the first thing that I'm just going to do is type in let's just put has authority, switch has authority. We're going to be using this a lot later, but don't worry too much about what this means right now. Basically, if it's the server version of the game, so if we go back into here, we have server and client. Anything that look, let me start that again. If it's the client version of the game, the remote pin will fire. If it's the server version of the game, the authority pin will fire. And different things require different authority to be able to be executed correctly. That's the best way I can explain that abstractly right now, but we only want server travel to happen on the server. So if it has authority, we're going to go ahead and execute that. The client doesn't need to execute that because it's not going to work. So we don't need that from the client branch. And the other thing that we need to do is we don't want this overlap firing if anything overlaps this portal. We want it to be a character. So what I'm going to type in here is the other actor that overlaps it. I'm going to get the owner, and can I type in is player is locally the owner of the actor is a player controller, so maybe let's cast to player controller. and if that cast succeeds, then we'll go ahead and execute it. So we're only gonna server travel if a player controlled actor overlaps the server travel thing. Okay. Sorry for that screw around, but I felt like it was necessary. Anyway, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna build in some actual mechanics. So we're gonna start with shooting. So I'm just gonna grab our third person character. I just hit Control B to browse to where he is. And what I might do is I might duplicate him and just call him FPS character. Alright, Control Shift S to save everything, and I'm gonna go ahead and just drop him in the multiplayer FPS folder. Okay, so we're back here. Now, because we've created a new character here, what we need to do is we need to tell our game mode to use that character instead of the third person character here. So if we go FPS character like that, that's all we need to do there. So what we could have done back in that server travel thing is checked if it was an FPS character that overlapped it, and then gone ahead and done the server travel. Now all the movement input is fine. All this character movement stuff is fully replicated, so you don't need to worry about any of that. If you want to add your own custom movement, you got to replicate that yourself, which we'll get to later. Now for FPS, first person shooter, let's grab this camera boom, target arm length 0. And I'm just going to put this up in our dude's face, just like that. So now if we go into maps and go into game map, we now have this terrible camera angle and we can see inside our own brain. That's epic. So what we need to do to fix that is go into character up here, use controller rotation. So that'll take the rotation of the player controller and automatically rotate the player's pawn, which is this guy, to face the rotation. So now you can see if you look at the ground, he's just sliding around like that. And this is why we use the third person template, by the way, because if you just use FPS and you're looking at other characters in the game, this dude on the screen, he would just appear as like an arm and a gun instead of a full-bodied person. And even though the animations aren't perfect because he's sliding and doesn't have blend spaces and whatever, like you can set that up eventually if you want, but that's why we use the third person template. So now that that's going, let's see if we can build a basic shooting mechanic. Okay, so I'm just gonna go edit project settings. Where is it? Input, axis mappings is fine. We want a new action mapping, and this is going to be called shoot, and I'm just going to put /left click, just so, I don't know, I just like to put the keyboard command in there so I know what's what. Left mouse button. Okay, so close that, and now if we go back into here and we type in input left click, we have this. So the way that I'm going to do this, I'm not going to worry about projectile motion for now. Maybe we can get to that later, but the quickest way to get shooting done is to just do it with a line trace. So whenever you click, let's do a, oh my god, line trace by channel. If you've spent any time in Unreal Engine, you know exactly what I'm about to do with this whole line tracing thing, so feel free to skip ahead because there's not going to be anything special just here. I'm just going to trace forward, hit something, and then we're just going to destroy it if it's a destroyable actor. So the starting point is going to be the follow camera, so we're going to get the world location. That's going to be the start. Now the end point is going to be the world location plus a vector, the world location of the camera plus a vector, and the vector that we're going to be adding is the follow camera get forward direction vector multiplied by float, and the float is going to be shooting range. And I'm just going to move these to a new category, movement, base turn rate and base lookup rate, and I'm going to add the shooting range into what? Shooting. That'll do the job. Is everything still recording? Microphone's working. Beautiful. Okay, so the shooting range by default, let's just make it enormous, 10,000. So we're getting the forward vector of the camera, which is the length of 1, multiplying that by 10,000, adding that to the location of the camera, and then setting that as the endpoint. Actors to ignore. we should probably ignore our self. So let's just add self into there. Debug type, let's promote that to a variable so we can easily change that later. Debug type. By the way, shooting a debug type, let's make them with the little eyeball so that they're easily editable. We know that they're editable, and we're going to set that to 4 duration for the debug type for now. And let's just check that that's working. Okay, so I'm in the game. There we go, you can see that I'm shooting, and what you might notice is it's not showing up on the client, and that is fine. Yeah, and if I shoot on the client, it doesn't show up on the server. And the reason for that is because when you do the input, this runs only on the client's version of the game. So at this point in the video, it's probably useful to mention there's going to be some resources in the description right now. So there's that video I told you earlier about the sessions and the joining and everything like that you can go ahead and watch if you want to figure out how to do sessions properly a bit better. I'm also going to link, there's a big like 100-page PDF which explains everything in multiplayer. It's very good and it's very concise, and it's also very technical, and it can be a bit daunting to read, so like give it a crack, and it'll teach you a lot of stuff. And there's a really good diagram in that particular which shows it's a Venn diagram of server, client, and it shows what information is present where and how to get the information from server to client and from client to client, and etc. So all that stuff might be useful background reading, but if you don't feel like doing that, I am just going to go through and I'm just going to build a functional game. So if you want to just learn by doing, feel free to follow me. If you want the background information, which will make it easier, go ahead and have a look at that, and you might find that helpful. There's also another channel that I want to recommend, which I'm going to link in the description as well. I think it's called Bry. He calls himself Bry. He has brilliant and very, very entertaining videos on multiplayer in Unreal, and he explains, he explains just a lot of stuff just fantastically, and it makes sense, it'll just make so much more sense to you what's actually going on in the, in Unreal when you're doing a multiplayer game. Like everybody has their own game instance running on their computer, and he does a brilliant job of explaining how the information is communicated from computer to computer. I'm just absolutely fucking rambling, but those are the videos and the resources that have really helped me. So I'm going to put them down below, and you can have a look at them if you want. But I am going to continue on with this. So we've done a line trace on the client, and what this basically is doing here is we're getting the location on the client where we want to aim. Okay, so now the next thing that we need to do is we need to pass that location to the server, and then the server needs to determine whether or not that can be a valid hit. So we've got the hit on the client, but if we were to use the result from the client and then to deal damage and things on the client, that kind of defeats the purpose of the authority and the remote in multiplayer. The reason that you have a server and a client and authority and remote is because there needs to be one true instance of the game. So you're running a game on your computer, your mate's running a game on another computer. You're both in separate games. Like it's not the same game. They're both two separate instances of the game, but they communicate so that the logic of the game reproduces the same experience for each player. And in order to do that, there needs to be one true version of the game where all of the important shit happens, and then from that one true version, that sends the relevant information out to all of the other versions. So when you're doing a line trace like this on the client, it needs to happen on the client because this is how the player interfaces with the game. But once you've got the location, then you need to pass that to the server, and then the server determines if it's a valid hit and what to do with that hit. Okay? If that doesn't make sense, again, don't worry. So, if there is a hit, we're going to break the hit. And then the impact point, let me just create a new event down here. So what we're going to do down here is we're going to have a custom event, and this is going to be called client, what should we call it? Let's call it request hit at location. Okay, and this is the first time in the video where we're going to start doing replication. Okay, so up here in replicates, we're going to have that run on the server. Okay, and we need to make it reliable. versus unreliable. Unreliable events for things like particles and that, so say if like the server, something happens on the server and it needs to spawn particles or sounds or whatever. If there's a lot of communication going on between the server and the client, the particles don't fucking matter, like really. And you don't want the particle effects to be, unless they're important particle effects, you don't want them to be clogging up the connection between the server and the client. So you leave things that are unnecessary and that can potentially be cut out as unreliable. But if it's absolutely essential, like somebody trying to interact with the game and hit something, you want that to be a reliable event. So let's do that. Okay, and for the inputs, we're going to have a new parameter here, which is going to be called vector, and it's going to be called vector of type vector, and it's going to be of hit location. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to grab the impact point, and we're going to say, what was it, request hit at location. And a good thing that you can do, so I'm just going to double click that to go over here, is I'm just going to rename this and go back to the start and go server SR underscore request hit at location. I like to do that because it's easy for me to visually see what's doing what and where things are running, if it's server or client or whatever. And it's also easy to find events like that, because then you can go server underscore and boom. I got this tip from Bri, by the way. His video again is in the description. It's got fantastic videos. Okay, so the client has decided where they want to hit. That's what this does here. Let me just show you one more thing before we do that. So I'm just going to put a print string here, and I'm going to change the time to 10 seconds, and this is just going to say hello, just to help demonstrate what's going on here. So if we hit play, I'm shooting on the server, and you can see we're getting hello, 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 hello. Okay, and it's saying server hello. Now if we go over here and on the client we say hello, 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 again you can see that it's only coming from the client. Now if we were to put that print string down here, so now it's running on the server. If we do it on the server, hello, 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 on the server's saying hello, and if we do it on the client, server says hello, 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 hello. So that's what's going on with this replication sort of thing. Hopefully that, I don't even know if that's helpful, honestly. At this point, like, that might just be more confusing, but let's just continue on with this. Alright, so I had a bit of a think, and I have a better way to do what we were just doing. This replication stuff still screws with my head a little bit, but I think I know what I'm doing now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cut all of that. That can stay there, and this is going to go down here, and what we're going to do is we're going to run the line trace on the server. For some reason I thought that we couldn't run the line trace on the server because I thought that the direction of the follow camera wasn't going to be replicated. But it is, because all of the players exist on the server, and all of the players exist on the server. That's all I need to say right there. So this will work just as it is right now. So if we input this action on the client, so I'm just gonna put a little tab there that says client. We're gonna request. We're going to say, what should we say? Run line trace on server. That's what we're going to rename that. Sorry for the screw around, but hopefully by going through this and, you know, seeing these mistakes and me trying to explain it, hopefully it sort of helps you understand, you know, like, I guess like pitfalls and things that you could potentially fall into. And, you know, just troubleshooting this sort of shit I think is helpful to see. So we're going to get rid of the hit location because we don't need that anymore. So I'm just going to compile and save. We're running this on the server. These both exist on the server, so that's fine. And we have the debug type set for duration. Am I recording? I'm recording. So now, if I shoot on the server, you can see that only the line appears on the server. And if I shoot on the client, only the line appears on the server. It doesn't appear on the client's screen, which is fine. But it's also useful to note that you can aim up, you can aim sideways. If you look on the left-hand screen, like, you can aim in all sorts of directions. So that's good. That's good. which you wouldn't be able to do if this didn't exist on that version of the game, but it does. So anyway, that's enough of me rambling and talking about stupid shit that's irrelevant to the tutorial. Now that we've done the hit, if there's a hit, let's get the hit actor. And just for now, we'll do a damage system later on. But just to keep things simple for now, we'll just build a very basic version and then we'll build up to damage system. And we'll get it more complicated as we go on and we'll add in different AI and things like that. The hit actor. Let's get the class. Let's get the class, or maybe let's get the owner. Let's get the owner. So that'll be the player controller, and let's say cast to, what do we call it? Game player controller. So you know what I might do? No, let's just leave that like that. That's fine. Okay, so if we hit a player controlled actor with the gameplay controller, what we're gonna do is let's open up our player controller now. Game player controller. Open full blueprint editor. We can delete this stuff right here. That's fine. Let's have a custom event inside of here, and this is going to be called kill controlled pawn. I hate the word kill. It's such a violent word. What if we say defeat controlled pawn? What we're gonna do is we're gonna say get controlled pawn, which will be our FPS character, and we're gonna say destroy actor. Okay, so we're gonna destroy it, and then what we might do is we can set up a spectator pawn. Let's set up a spectator pawn. So we could say spawn actor from class. I think there's a default spectator. Yeah, beautiful. There's a default spectator pawn. You know what, actually? We're going to need to do that before destroying it, because... Let's put that there, and just connect that up like that. Spawn a spectator pawn. We're going to get the controlled pawn, and we're going to say get actor transform. Okay. Plug that into there. And then we are going to say possess. The target, okay, so the possess node, it takes in a player controller and it takes in a pawn. The player controller is ourself, because this is a player controller blueprint, and this player controller, which is your interface with the game, is going to possess this spectator pawn. And inside the spectator pawn, it already has, I'm assuming, because it's a default one that comes with the engine, I'm assuming it already has movement controls, just like over here in the FPS character. So when you input different keys and things, it should fly around. It'll read that it'll know that you're possessed to it. It'll take your inputs and it'll move the pawn, like a person driving a car. I guess you kind of possess the car. You in the car, you're the player controller, and you're possessing the car. Anyway, so now that we've got that and we've possessed that, if we get the controlled pawn and destroy it, that's going to destroy the spectator pawn. So what we need to do is get rid of that, actually. We're going to spawn the spectator pawn, destroy the controlled pawn, which is the FPS character, and then we're going to possess the spectator pawn. Or maybe a better way to do this, let's promote this to a variable. Does it even need to be a variable? Maybe it doesn't. Let's try and do it without it. Let's say, is it depossess or unpossess? Unpossess, okay. So maybe what we can do is you can do that very first thing over here. So when we say we defeat the controlled pawn, we're going to unpossess the FPS character, spawn the spectator pawn, destroy the controlled pawn, which is the FPS character. No, because we've unpossessed it. God, my brain is just going in circles. Jesus Christ. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Spawn the spectator pawn. Destroy the FPS character. Possess the spectator pawn. Alright, simple as that. So now, when we get hit over here, we're going to say defeat controlled pawn. If the line trace hits a game player controller thing, mabob, we're going to defeat the control pawn. Now, to keep track of what's occurring where, I'm going to put a comment over that. So I've highlighted it and hit C, and this is input shoot. Okay, and I'm going to introduce you to a color scheme that I like to use. just because it helps to keep things neat and organized. For client stuff, so this is occurring on the client, I like to use blue. So what I do is I go 0.5 down there. Well, it's not blue, it's yellow, but I set it to 0.5. This is just what I do. And then for the line trace on the server, I'm going to call this, what, shooting, well, let's go SR shooting line trace, okay? And I like to put the red to 0.5 up there for server things. And the reason that I use these particular colors is because on these events, why do I do it that way? I'm not actually even sure. God damn. I just I just think of that as server, that as multicast, and that as client for some reason. Maybe you'll get your own color scheme that'll work for you, but anyway, this is how I'm going to do it. Blue's for server, yellow's for client, and then we get a sort of pink for multicast, which we'll do in just a second. Okay, so defeat controlled pawn. This is only ever being called from the server, so I'm just going to put that SR in there, and I'm going to highlight this and call it defeat controlled pawn and spawn spectator. Okay, and that's going to be blue for me because I have no idea. My arbitrary color scheme, that's just what works for me. So now we're possessing a controlled pawn. Let's have a delay. Let's have a delay of maybe 5 seconds, and then what we'll do is we'll spawn an actor from class, which will just be another FPS character. And the spawn transform, we're going to need to get, well, should we get it? We could get a player start, or what we could do is, just for the sake of keeping the tutorial quick for now, we can come back and do this later maybe. Let's just get the controlled pawn, the spectator pawns. No, you know what? This is a better idea. Let's just save the transform of the controlled pawn before they're defeated. So let's call this defeated transform. Okay, let's save the transform of where they were defeated, and then we can respawn them there. So after 5 seconds, we're spawning an FPS character at the defeated transform. Okay, and then what we're going to need to do is get the controlled pawn and destroy it, which is going to be the spectator pawn now, because we're currently possessing a spectator pawn. So we're destroying the spectator pawn, and then we're going to possess the FPS character. Fingers crossed this will work, and this is all happening on the server, so I'm just going to drag all that over like that. Fingers crossed it'll work. I have a funny feeling I've made a mistake because I seem to be getting a bit tired, but now if I shoot on the client, you can see that the line traces aren't showing up on my screen, but they're showing up on the server. Nothing's happening. Okay, why is that? Now if I shoot you, nothing is happening, and the hits are going straight through him. I know exactly why that's happening. Capsule component, just set that to block all dynamic. I don't know. That should work. I think the trace is like the wrong visibility or something like that. So now if we go on the server again so we can see where we're shooting, and I hit and nothing has happened. Or has it? No, nothing's happened. Alright. I'll figure out what's going on, and then I'll come back and I'll... Alright baby, I figured it out. It was a very small fix. So the problem was, in FPS character, when you're shooting, we're hitting an actor, which is the FPS character, we're getting the owner, which is their player controller, and we're casting to game player controller. The cast was failing because, in our game mode, we hadn't set up the player controller class to be the game player controller. It was set to just player controller. So open up your game mode and just set the player controller class to game player controller, which is the one that we set up at the start of the tutorial. Okay, so now that that's fixed, let's show you how that looks. So we're in here on the server. I'm shooting, I'm missing, blah blah blah. Hit, he's defeated. If I go to the client window, he has a spectator pawn, and if you wait 5 seconds, we're back at the respawn transform. And does it work the other way? If I shoot the guy on the server, So I hit him, you can see on the server window, give it a bit of time, and you can see he's back. Let's see if his spectator pawn works. So I'm just going to possess him, and his spectator pawn works. Whew. Victory. Thank God for that. Alright, what should we do next? Let's do some multicasting effects. Let's do some multicasting effects, because at the moment, so we have the hit happening on the server, the possession and things is happening on the server, that's all good, but there's no real indication of any shooting going on. So let's actually do that. So when we shoot in the FPS character, we do a line trace. If there's a hit, defeat the pawn. Okay, that's all well and good. What we want to do at the hit location, at the impact point, we're going to spawn some particles and some sounds. So the way that we do that is we don't just tack something on the end, because this is only happening on the server, and if we just tack some spawn particles and things on the end of this, they're only going to happen on the server instance of the game and not for anybody who's connected. So what we need to do is we need to have a custom event down here, and I'm going to go CL underscore, no I'm not, I'm going to say MC underscore, MC for multicast, and I'm going to call this spawn hit FX. So hopefully you can see that. And this needs to be multicast, and we can leave this as unreliable unless you really want the particle effects to be there, which I do, so I'm going to make it reliable. And what's going to happen when we spawn the hit effects, we're going to need a location, I believe, so let's just plug that in like that. And let's say spawn emitter at location, not attached. Spawn emitter at location. We can just roll with the explosion from the starter content, and let's also say spawn sound at location. Attenuation settings, let's create an attenuation asset just quickly, because why the hell not. Sound attenuation, my sound attend. Okay, so let's just drop that in there, just so we know that it's actually happening at the right location, because if you don't have a sound attenuation there and you give it a location, it's just going to be 2D and you can hear it at the same volume anywhere. So we just want to have that in. What do we just want to use? An explosion? Let's just roll with an explosion. Okay, so that's multicasting. So let's comment that and call that MC hit effects, and I'm gonna make that green because that's my color scheme, baby. I don't know why. Don't ask why. Stop asking me why, because I don't know. I just don't know. So we want the hit effects to happen even if it wasn't a player that was hit, just for any hit. So what we're going to do is we're going to say MC underscore spawn hit effects, and the hit location is going to be the impact point. So we can drag that in. That was out too far. That was unnecessary. Social distancing is getting to me. I'm distancing everything. Alright, baby. So if we hit play, oh god, if we hit play, you can see now, and I wonder if my sounds are on. I think they're on. Yeah, hopefully they're not too loud. Oh god, what the hell's happening? Let me just start that again. Okay, so if we're shooting on the server, sounds, baby, and you are dead. And now if I jump into my client, I can't shoot because I don't have the right pawn possessed, but now I'm back in, and now you can see on the client and on the server, we're getting hit effects. And if I do it just on the server, are they showing up on the client? They are. They're also showing up on the client. So that's how you do multicasting, baby. That simple. It's that simple. I'm just going to delete that hello there because I had that there when I was debugging before. Now, what? Alright, so the next thing to probably cover is how to get things to happen on the HUD and how to change the HUD. The heads-up display, as they call it. Now, this can be a little bit tricky because on the server, the HUDs of the players don't actually exist. So you can't, like we did before, the FPS character, you can't add a bit of script here to change the HUDs of the players. So when I say defeat control pawn, I can't access the player HUD and tell it to tell the player that it's defeated, because the HUD only exists on the client version of the game, only on their computer. It doesn't exist on the server's computer, whoever's serving the game. So this was a bit of a hang up for me to wrap my head around. So let me show you how this works. Let's set up a player HUD. So if we go into widgets, no, I'm not going to do that in widgets, I'm going to do that here. I'm going to go new blueprint class, let's say HUD, okay? And we're going to call this game HUD. That's simple. Alright, now we're going to need a widget for the player HUD, so let's go into our widgets folder, user interface, widget blueprint, HUD BPW is what we're going to call that. And let's just chuck some text in. We'll anchor that to the top for now. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. 64 size to content, just like that. This is just so I can see it because I'm not blind, but just to make it easy. And that's gonna say default text for now. Actually, default text. Okay, so let's chuck a progress bar in there as well. Actually, let's chuck a progress bar, and we're not going to use this yet, but I do want to do a health system later. So let's anchor that to the top left, and that can just sit there, and that can be full. That does not matter at the moment. We have our gorgeous HUD. I called it GAM HUD instead of Game HUD. God. Okay, so we have the HUD. So let's leave that open for now, and we'll go back into Game HUD, event graph, close, delete that. We're going to say create. On begin play, we're going to say create widget. So whenever the HUD begins play, we're going to create a widget, and the widget is going to be the HUD BPW, and we're going to add to viewport. Okay. F7 to save, or to compile, and I might just save on compile. I'm going to set that to on success only. So when you compile by tapping F7, it automatically saves your asset as well. That's just a handy little trick that you can use. So I'm going to close the game HUD because I think that's all we need to do there. No, it's not. We need to do one more thing. So off of the return value, we're going to promote that to a variable, and we're just going to call that HUD BPW. Because the game HUD itself, let me just connect that to there just like that because it looks neater. The game HUD is this, which is parent class HUD. The actual widget is a separate thing, so we need to save that as a variable because we're going to be accessing that later if we want to get access to these things in here. So, if we get our player controller, our game player controller, why did I want that? I cannot remember. We don't need that. What we need is the game mode. So let's grab our game mode, which is our game mode. And in the HUD class down there, instead of just using HUD, we're just going to use game HUD. So now when we begin play with this game mode, every single computer, whether it's a server or remote, is running this game mode with these settings. So they're all going to get one of these game HUDs. So if I hit play, there we go. The HUDs have loaded and we have the default text. Oh, I just sent one of our dudes flying. And is he going to go off the edge? He's not going to go off the edge. I wish he went off the edge. Let's knock him off the edge, can we? Bye. Goodbye. Fuck, I'm immature. Where was I? Okay, so each of them has a game HUD now. So what we might do is on begin play in this controller, or on possessed actually, on possess, event on possess. Possess pawn, let's say get class. What I want to do is how do I want to do this? Alright, I got a few ideas. So on possess, let's see if this happens on the server or the client. I think this happens on the server, but let's just see. So if we hit play with a print string, okay, so we get 2 server messages that say hello. Now, if I go into my controller again, and we say possessed pawn, what we're going to do is we're going to set up the HUD to change depending on whether it's spectating or if you're actually in the game. I don't know why you'd want to do this really, but it's a good demonstration because it shows you how to change the HUD. It'll become apparent in a sec. So we're going to say get class of the possessed pawn, and if it's equal to spectator pawn, my microphone's just in the way of the screen a little bit. If it's equal to spectator pawn, we're going to do something. If it's equal to what is it, FPS character, we'll do something else. Okay, so I'm just gonna, oh my god, left click while holding B for a branch. If it's a spectator pawn, do a thing. Left click, hold B for another branch. If it's not a spectator pawn, sorry, then we'll check if it's an FPS character, and if it is, then we'll do another thing. Now, what we need to do here, what happens if we say get HUD? Because this is happening on the server, let me just show you this. So get the HUD of this player controller, and I'm just gonna say print string, and I'm gonna say is valid here, just like that, and just put that into the print string. And now let's see what happens with this. True, false, and false. Let's put that on a little bit longer and see if I can explain what's happening there. So let's make that 60 seconds. So you can see on the server we get a true and a false, and on the client we get a true and a false. I don't really know why I'm showing you that right now. What was I going to say? I can't even remember. Basically the HUD is... Okay, so this is what I was getting to. Because this is running on the server, the HUD on the server instance of the game is valid, but on the client's machine... How do I word it? I might have to start this one again. I'm not going to start it again because we've done good work, but I'm going to cut this. Hang on. Okay, so I know how to explain this now. This is running on the server on both the client... this is running on the server, okay? And on the server HUD exists, but the client HUD does not exist because the client HUD only exists on the client. So when you check if the HUDs are valid for both players, we're checking for both players because we have 2 players in the game. We could have 3, we could have 4. Let's add a few more in actually. So let's say 4, and what's going to happen now is we get 1 true because we're running this event on the server to get the HUD, and the HUD is valid on the server, but it's not valid on any of the clients. So that's why it's returning false for each of these clients. Bad clients. Okay, so hopefully that kind of makes sense what's going on there. So what we need to do if we want to change the HUD on the client is we need to actually run events on the client, not on the server. So let's delete all of that. The possessed pawn of the class, blah blah blah, that's all good. Let's add a new custom event down here, and this is going to be called client underscore because this is going to be an event that's going to be running on the client, and I'm going to call this update HUD text. Okay, now replicated on the client, reliable, yes. What we want to do down here, because this is running on the client, if we get the HUD now, the HUD will always be valid, and it'll be the HUD that's associated with this game player controller. So if we now, if we get the HUD, we're going to need to cast to the game HUD. Okay, because this is just a generic HUD. We need to cast to the game HUD, which is the one that we made here, and then we need to get this HUD BPW. HUD BPW. And you know what I might do? I'm going to cut that. I'm going to F7, save, go back here. I'm just going to add a function library in here. This is sort of a little bit of a tangent, but I feel like it's useful to show. Let's call this MP for multiplayer function library. And I'm just going to call this get player HUD BPW because chances are we're going to use this a lot later. And I don't want to have to put this everywhere if I'm going to be reusing the same thing, because I don't care about the generic HUD. I don't care about this HUD, the actual HUD class. All I really care about when I'm talking about the HUD is the BPW. So that's the only bit that I really want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a return node and hook that into there. If the cast fails, let's add another one here, and let's just call this print error string. And I'm just going to say print string, and I'm going to put the string into there. I'm going to make it 60 seconds, and I'm going to make it red. And we're going to call this event whenever we have errors in our programming. So, like we do right now. Okay, that's fine. So it needs a player controller as the target. I'm just going to plug that into there. Okay. And if the cast fails, we're going to print an error string. And the string is going to say error in get player HUD BPW. Because sometimes the HUD might not exist for whatever reason. So if you try to get a HUD that doesn't exist, I want to know about it, because that's going to cause problems in the game. And you could add a sound there if you wanted as well. Last thing I'm going to do is make that a pure function. Hit F7 and we can close that down. So now if we go into here, we can say get HUD BPW, just like that. Target is self. Okay. And you know what, actually, to save another step, we don't even need that target. And this is another important point to bring up, actually. Let's say get player controller 0. In multiplayer, every player controller... No, not every player controller is index 0. Let me rephrase that. On the server, the player on the server is player index 0. On the client is also player index 0. On the client, the only player controller that exists is the actual player. All the other player controllers are inaccessible from a client version of the game. On the server, all of the player controllers exist, and they're 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So if we ever call get player HUD, that's going to get the HUD for that instance of the game, whether it be a client or a server. I don't know if that made any sense, but basically we don't need to put the player controller in there, because we're not going to be accessing other players' HUDs. We're only ever going to be accessing our own HUD. Okay, that was a mouthful, but we got there. So get player HUD BPW, and now what we can do is in the HUD BPW, let's just delete all of this. Do we have access to our text? Let's make that variable, and let's just call this silly text. Silly text. And what we're going to do with our silly text is we're just going to say set text, like that. We're going to have a custom event. Now, events in widgets can only occur on the client because they only occur on the client. So I'm just going to call this update text, I guess, is all we really need to say just there. And let's use a select node here. We'll make it a boolean, plug that into the inputs, and we're going to call this spectating, question mark. If spectating is true, it's going to say spectating. If it's false, we're going to say playing. I'm fighting the urge to put something funny. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. It's a waste of time. Who needs fun? We don't need fun. So now... what the fuck was I up to? So when we update HUD text, we're going to say, what do we call it? Client underscore update text. And we're just going to plug spectating into there. Okay. So now, whenever we possess a new pawn, if we're spectating, we're going to say client update HUD text, and we're going to set spectating to true. And you know what, we don't really need this down there, and let's just get rid of that branch. We don't need that either, and let's just put spectating in there, just like that. So whenever we possess a new pawn, if it's a spectator pawn, it's going to say spectating on the HUD. If it's not a spectator pawn, it's just going to say playing on the HUD, which is kind of silly, but like, I felt like it was necessary to do this to show you how to use the HUD. So now let's just comment that, and this is just going to be called update spectating spectator HUD. Now this bit here is running on the server, so what I might do is I might comment that and just make that blue. And now down here, this is running on the client, so I'm just going to comment that. I'm not going to say anything because it's sort of irrelevant, and make that yellow, just like that. You could give the comments actual descriptions, but I don't feel like it's necessary right now. And now this is being called whenever we're possessed. So what happens if we jump in the game? It says default text for everybody all the time, and we have a problem. Okay, so I'm just going to set my players back to 2, and I'm going to figure out what's going on, and I'm going to come back and debug it. This is a repeating theme, isn't it? We make something, it doesn't work, I try and fix it out, and I try and fix it up, and then we try again. But that's cool. I'll be back. So I haven't tested this yet, but I have a funny feeling I know what's going on. So when we get this player HUD here, what I'm going to do, I have a feeling the cast is succeeding, but this doesn't exist yet because I think when it's possessing, it's trying to access this before it's actually had time to make it. So what I might do is, if that succeeds, let's just have an is valid here, and we're going to plug that into there, and we're going to say, or is valid, and just up here we can put that there as well if it fails. Okay, so I don't know if we actually need that, but that's fine. So now we're going to use this branch just here, and when we go to update the text, we're going to try and get the HUD, and if the HUD is not valid, let's just wait. So this is just kind of a cheap workaround. We're just going to wait, and then we're going to try again, and then once we try again, hopefully it's set up. So let's see if that works. Playing. There you go, baby. That's all it took. So the HUD just wasn't set up properly. And if I kill old mate, spectating. Boom. See that? It says spectating on his screen. And now it says playing again. And the important thing to note here is that it didn't say it on the wrong screen. There we go. It says spectating on the client. Whew. What a relief. Okay. Alright, I'm going to pause. Alright, so one other thing that I thought might be cool to show you is replicating components and using repNotify. So don't worry, because I know you don't know what that is, or you might know what that is. But let's just go into this and let's just show you how this works. So I'm going to go is it in blueprints? I don't really know. Let's go in blueprints and put this in blueprints. I'm going to say blueprint class, actor component, and I'm just going to call this random color component. So this is just going to be a way for us to distinguish players from each other. We're just going to give them each a random color. So let's grab our mannequin. Let's grab, oh wait, does he have a material? What is it, UE4 body or something, I think it's called? UE4 body, okay. Now, does this have any dynamic parameter thingos in it? Body color, okay, that's what we're looking for. Alright, that's what we're looking for. So in random color component, what we're going to do here is we're going to assign each player a random color. And this is kind of tricky because each person has a separate instance of the game. If you just, on each instance, assign random colors, player 1 is going to have 3 different colors to player 2, which is going to have 3 different colors to player 3, which is going to have another 3 different colors. We want them to all be the same color. So what we want to do on event begin play in our random color component, which I'm actually just going to add in here, random color component. On event begin play, first thing we're going to do is, we can't actually use has authority in here, I don't think. Okay, so this is kind of tricky already. So what we're going to do is we're going to say get owner, which will return the FPS character, and we're going to say, do you have authority? Okay, and then we're going to hook that up to a branch. Okay, so does this component come from an owner which has authority? Because we only want to do this on the server. We want to set the random color on the server, because that's the one true instance of the game, and then we want to replicate that result to all of the other players, okay? I know that some of this might get a bit repetitive, by the way, but it's my intention with this video that you follow along and you see this stuff again and again and again in different circumstances, and then you kind of, it just clicks in your head how this all sort of works, and then you've got all these different examples and things that you can draw from to be able to do your own multiplayer stuff. So we're doing this only on the server instance of the game. We're going to add a new variable which is going to be called color, and I spell that with a U because that's just how I was taught in school. Maybe I should, no, should I spell it? I'm going to spell it without the U, just because it's like that with everything else. Okay, so what we're going to do is on the server we're going to get a random color. Can we do that? No, we can't. Can we make a color? We can make a color. Ugh. Let's make a vector. That looked ugly. Let's make a vector. Can I go random vector, actually? That would be nice. A random unit vector. And then can I convert that to a color? To linear color? I wonder if this will work. I don't know, it might not. Oh my god, what is all this? What is all this? What is all this? Alright, let's just see if it works. So, if this is only running on the server, let's just get a random color. We're gonna need to get the owner. We're gonna need to get, well, let's say cast to character. Okay. We're gonna get the mesh. And we're gonna create a dynamic material instance. God, this is a mouthful. UE4 man body. Man body. Why is that funny? And we're creating a dynamic material instance for element 0. That's the body, and the little chest logo is element 1. So we're doing that, and then we're going to say set vector parameter value, which is body color without a U, and we're setting that to color. Oopsie daisies, is that the wrong linear color structure? And this is a color structure. Okay, so maybe that's what fucked up here. We're going to change U to linear color. Okay, and then if I drag that in, let me just compile real quick. On the server, get it, okay, there we go. Random color. And then set the body color just down there. Alright, baby. Alright. Let's see what happens. Okay, so on the server instance of the game, you can see that our boy is a color, and on the client instance of the game, you can see that he does not have any color. And if I look at the feet on the server, you can see that he's green like that, okay? So it's only setting the colors on the server, it's not doing anything for the clients yet. And if I were to get rid of this, just to illustrate, just so you can see the dilemma here, we have yellow and black on the server, and then on the client we have blue and we have black. Okay, so they've both got their own random colors. So that's why we want to do this on the server only. Okay, so just like that, set the color. And now what we want to do actually is this is where a repNotify comes in. This is a handy little tool that you can use. So when we set this color, we have a repNotify to notify all of the game's instances that this has changed, okay? So if we click this and we go replication, you can have it to replicate it, or you can have it to repNotify. So we're going to set that to repNotify. So whenever this is changed on the server, it'll also send that result to the clients. And you can see over here we've got this onRep color thing. So if I go ahead and copy this in here now, what's going to happen is when color's updated on the client, it's going to go ahead and update the body material, okay? So if we set this on the server, it'll also set it for the clients. Fingers crossed. Green boy, and black boy, and white boy, and white boy. Okay, so nothing's happened. Ooh, mysterious. I wonder why. I know exactly why. Don't mean to flex, but no, not in class settings. The reason that this isn't working, this is set to replicate, but it's not actually replicating, and that's because this component isn't actually set to replicate. So there are a couple of ways that you can do that. Over here in, I believe all characters are replicated by default, so if I go up here, you can see replicates here. So that's why the character movement replicates. When we have two players in the game, just in the default template, and you have the two instances of the game running, they're automatically running around and they're synced up with each other's games. Okay, that's because this is set to replicate here. But on the random color component which we just created, component replicates is set to false. Okay, so you could set that to true here, or a better way to do it, because we always want this to be replicated, is we can actually do that in the blueprint. So I'm just going to say set is replicated. Okay, just like that. So it'll always be replicated. Now if I hit compile and save, fingers crossed, baby. Look at that. We have yellow and we have black and we have yellow and we have black, baby. So that's it. That's how you use the repNotify node. Really, really, really handy. That's the end of the tutorial, guys. I hope that was helpful. And if you have any questions or anything like that, or any problems, don't hesitate to just drop them down in the comments below, and either I can help you out or somebody else on the page might be able to offer a solution as well. There is a part 2 to this series, which is going to be a paid part. Everything in part 1 is the basics that you need to know, but part 2 we're going to be going into some more advanced stuff and a few more examples for those of you who want a little bit more, want to understand it a little bit more. And in that we're going to be covering a damage system that you can use across players, AI, and different objects in the world. We're going to be looking at AI controllers, behavior trees, and behaviors in multiplayer, and we're going to cover a few basic behaviors, things like target selection, selecting which players to target, chasing and attacking as well. And to wrap it all up at the end, we're going to build a fully functional wave-based multiplayer game mode, which will kind of integrate everything like the HUD, the AI, replicated actors, all of it together. So if you're interested in that, there's a link in the description, and there's also a link in the description for the project files as well, for the full project, part 1 and part 2. And if you want them both together, you can get them for a discounted price. And with that said, if you can't afford these things as well, don't hesitate to let me know. I'm not going to withhold these things from you if they're going to help you and you can't afford it, you know, because they don't cost me anything to distribute, and I know what it's like to not have the money for the things that would be good for you as a developer or the person's as a person. I'm like stuttering my words. So yeah, if that's a problem for you, just let me know and we can figure something out. That's it. So thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful again, and I guess I'll see you again soon with another one. Enjoy the rest of your words, man. Why are they so hard? Enjoy the rest of your day, guys.